massive Bruno Sammartino was. But what you've got to remember as well is it's hard to. The thing is, it's so hard to comprehend because we're in such a different time zone with social media and everything. But you've got to realise Bruno Sammartino was loved and endeared by that audience. I mean, he had sold that arena out so many times. People had flocked to see this guy so many times. And he could have probably held that crowd in the palm of his hand at one time or another. So it's hard enough when you're a champion, but then to sustain it is another thing. As you see today, I mean, how many guys, Matt, when we see the title go on someone, you think, yep, that's it. But then a couple of months later, they either get stale or they find out it's really difficult to do the job. I mean, other than John Cena, CM Punk, there's not too many guys I've seen hold the belt for lengthy times or a lot of times that can actually sustain, being endeared and kind of respected as an out-and-out champion where you think they're the champion.
I suppose in a lot of ways it's also like under the opposite sort of circumstance as well. Like obviously Sammartino, he was champ for such a long time because he was the man. He was the top guy, just like Hulk Hogan, a champ for a long time because he was the biggest name in wrestling. But these days they're giving it to people like Kevin Owens, who I'm not going to say doesn't deserve it, but it's more of an effort to try and make him the man. The next guy.
That is a really good point you bring up, and actually, it's such a good point in the fact that. And people ask me this. They say, "What is the biggest difference? Like, why is it so difficult for like champions to get over nowadays and stuff like that?" And I guess back then, in a lot of ways, Matt, at the end of the day, it was the key thing was wrestling, and it was like if you was the best wrestler, 9 times out of 10 you were going to be holding that belt, and if you didn't hold the belt, you were going to probably be challenging it more often than not. You'd be the guy challenging. But it was a completely different outlook to where today you have to have so much of everything else. It's not enough just to be a wrestler, I guess, is where I'm getting at. But back here, first and foremost, whether Bruno Sammartino could cut a promo or not, if he could do it in the ring, quite frankly, that was all you needed. So, if you look at your guys like Cesaro and, all these guys that we look at and we think, God, they struggle a lot. If Cesaro had been at a time like this, he might have had more of a chance.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
For sure. He wouldn't have had to worry about cutting promos and doing the character stuff when he comes out. That would have been second to anything else that he does in the ring. I guess, we talk about 1980, Matt. This is such a huge transition into where the WWF was going. I mean, you think like 4 years later would be the birth of Hulk Hogan against the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden, and the whole Hulkamania took off. So you look at this wrestling here, Matt. We're only four years away. It was a hell of a change when they brought all that in.
I didn't even think about that until you said it, and then now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, something. It sparked a huge change, didn't it? And everything changed after that. I mean, even like the presentation of the camera and all that all changed.
Yeah, for sure. So there was like the 80s really was probably the most, I would say, changed decade in WWE history. Like, I mean, there were so many changes, so many happenings in that decade, like to the fact where you get to 1987 and they go from just a regional business to selling out the Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 people, still to this day the highest buy rate that they've ever had. It's incredible how quick and successful Vince McMahon Jr., of course, after taking over from his dad, took that business, just from a regional promotion to making it, all over the place. It's quite an incredible uprise. That's you just don't think of it, do you? I mean, you look at 1980 here, you just think, how's that ever going to work? But it certainly did.
So, have you seen much of Larry? Have you seen much of Larry Zbyszko? Or is this
Larry Zbyszko? Maybe like once or twice, not a whole lot. But the story about him being the student, I was familiar with in a sense, because that's how I knew of him, because of Bruno Sammartino and that whole storyline. And they've done, as you're saying about promos, they've done I recommend this to anyone, they've done a really awesome interview with one another, where they kind of lose it with each other, and it's quite good. It's like one of the famous things. Again, you might get that on the WWE Network as well if you type it in. They might actually show that. I love Sabisco's just like clumping in one and being like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. I'm not having this. It's like Bruno's just trying to chase him. Yeah, the old leg caught up in the rope as well.
Yeah, don't see that so often now.
It's like Bruno's just trying to like get his chin back or something.
Well, this is where you can see the kind of like the story behind this match, because it does look now pretty personal, doesn't it? I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, the referees are coming, the officials are coming in. They're all trying to break this thing up.
So I'm glad you brought up the story behind the match. Otherwise, I'd be thinking, why is he doing this? What's
going on? You definitely would have to have some sort of perspective of what was going on at the time. But like I say, this was very much the sort of first time this sort of thing had happened, where you see this kind of emotional tie-in with wrestling, especially at a time when it just wasn't used as much, especially with a guy like Bruno Sammartino, who'd been very, very much just wrestling based. And those two guys are the worst guys you could have in there trying to get him off. Some guy in a suit. It looks like he's actually legitimately choking him there. So this guy's like just tapping out. Yeah, like the guy's like, yeah, you okay? Like, kill him. So, like I say, this feud would not end here. But look, you watch. He's still like trying to go after him. So this was kind of like a time where you thought every fan would have wanted him to get his hands on him, but he kind of like done the low move and got out of there, kind of thing. That official was useless. The one that was trying to break him up, he was terrible.
Yeah, he even had his hands around his face at one point. I was like, I'm sure that's not the way you should be breaking someone up.
Yeah, and he's mad.
I'm sure there was a further match after this then.
Oh, yeah. They actually, I think they had about 3 matches in total. One of them finished on a steel cage match, so yeah, that's what it led to. Yeah, he's not happy, folks. But yeah, he was a big guy. You can definitely see it there.
Yeah.
Now again, this would have been at the back end of his career, so that wouldn't have been him at his absolute prime. But you can tell he was a big guy for sure. This would have been a time where his back, I remember he was in a lot of interviews, he said his back absolutely used to ache every single moment he would be in that ring from this sort of time on. So he'd done a good job at coping with it for sure, when you looked at that. And yeah, guys, now listen, I'm looking at the timer and I'm thinking we can get another match in, so we're going to go for a third match, Matt. We're going to get another one squashed in there to bring us up to a 60 minutes. So yeah, we're going to have another one. Don't forget, all the links I will put in on the episode banner so you guys can see it. Again, I think that last match we watched would be on the WWE Network. Matt, just as a sum up on that one, not exactly incredible stuff in the ring, but certainly the emotional attachment was there. What was your take from that, watching that one?
Oh yeah, another interesting kind of one, because I like the way you said that it was one of the first kind of heavy story structured ones like that, about the teacher and the mentor. Now I got that kind of background context, you know, it did actually make the match make a lot more sense to me. And actually, yeah, it was pretty good, but I could definitely see, like you said, that Sammartino was coming to the end of his kind of career, because he didn't sort of capture my imagination as I thought he might, you know.
Yeah.
But I have seen previous matches before this of him, and I've got to say, you know, you can see a bit of a difference there.
Absolutely, yeah. Very good kind of thing all round. I'll be interested to see what you guys think as well. Send us in an email, of course, the Wrestling Skull Podcast at gmail.com. And now let's get to the next match, which is the world title match between Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor. And this, we go way back again, Matt. Not as far back as we did. We go from a little 10 years after that, shall we say. But we are at a time of 1961. So this is 10 years later. I think, 10 years later from the Lou Thesz Buddy Rogers match that we watched, Matt. And this has significance to it because people were saying, you know, like, that Buddy Rogers at the time looked very young, and you know we all know Buddy Rogers now as a big name. You know, when did his time come? Well, this match is was the match that kind of put him on the map, I suppose, against Pat O'Connor, who was the reigning champion at the time up until this point. So I think this was from Chicago as well at the time. So this was well out of the New York kind of area that certainly wasn't there. A lot of stuff back then was Chicago, very heavily based. So yes, you can get this. I'll send this link on as I always do in the on the episode, so you'll get this. But yes, Buddy Rogers, Pat O'Connor from 1961. We're going to count down to one and put this on 3, 2, 1, and we're on again. And we get the normal world title match, Buddy Rogers versus Pat O'Connor. Let's hope so. And we're back, of course, to the black and white, Matt. Look at that bow tie. He's got his best stuff on there, hasn't he? He's like his best of the best is on. No messing about for this introduction. Certainly. So this was the NWA World Heavyweight title. I must say this was the title that again all the promoters agreed this was the title that was recognised as the world's heavyweight champion. So no matter what territory you were in, there was only one true champion, and that was the champion that all the promoters got together and said, he's our guy. So it was like a little committee almost. New York was kind of its own thing, like the WWF was kind of branched out on its own, and it wasn't a part of the NWA for a long time. So they had their own sort of version of a world's champion. But in many people's eyes, the NWA title was the legitimate world's title. It kind of had the most prestige with it because it was defended throughout all of North America. As we see, a blast from the past for us, Matt. Buddy Rogers, who at this time, this was an experienced wrestler by now. Obviously, we'd seen him last time against Lou Thesz. Do you know anything of Pat O'Connor, I must say?
No, I really don't know that much about the guy, really. I've got to say, I've got to rely on you to actually fill me in a little bit.
Well, I'm as familiar as probably you are. I mean, I've heard of the guy. I know he was the champion at one time or another, and I think he beat Lou Thesz, in fact, which was one of few guys that ever did actually beat him. But he was a very well respected. He was, I believe, and I'll look this up because people will be screaming down if I get this wrong, but I believe he was like as a sort of shooter fighter. So he was like, he'd come from the sort of legitimate thing at one time or another. You look at the size of that title, it's like barely anything, is it? Like so much prestige and all that, but look at the size of it back then to what we get today. And of course, that would be the title that, of course, for people that think about WCW, that NWA title would go into that huge world title that WCW would have. That's kind of where it came from. That's why WWE would have taken it over, because it kind of held so much prestige in that belt. It's unfortunate that really, in a lot of ways, Matt, that belt is non-existent today. That is sort of not there. There's no trace of that.
It is a huge shame. And That was one of the best things about the original brand split, that title was incorporated into it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look how far back this is. You know, that title's been around for a long, long time. All right, it might not look the same, but that descent, that belt had been in the reigns for a long time. So we're